The next pharaoh we're looking at is Ramses II, and he rules for an enormously long time, about 65 years. Rules from 1290 to 1224 BCE. And he rules at Abu Simbel, of which he's the last of the great warrior pharaohs. And Ramses builds a number of temples throughout Egypt. So this is not necessarily the only temple of Ramses II. This is a major one. And these would have been put, for example, at the boundaries or the borders of Egypt at the time to show people coming in the power of the pharaoh or the power of that specific pharaoh. Here we see colossal statues both inside and out, and they are carved. Well, the whole thing is carved rather than built. The four outside are of Ramses, seated and 65 feet or roughly 6 stories tall. They're massive, massive structures that are carved out. And you'll notice that there's a lack of detail. When we carve something that is quite large or sculpt something that is quite large, you can get away with less detail because of the grandiosity given by the size. You see the same thing at Mount Rushmore or the Statue of Liberty. Look at their faces. See how much detail there really is. So the carving is not as refined, just like we see at Mount Rushmore. And it's simply that element of sheer size. Here at Mount Rushmore, you could actually take the faces of, for example, Roosevelt, Jefferson, and Washington and really swap them. As long as you change hair and facial hair, it's effectively the same facial structure. There isn't that much of a difference between them. What you're seeing is difference in angle and other things. And what we see is this is not in the original location of the temple. It was moved 700 feet up a hillside to avoid destruction due to the construction of the Aswan High Dam. So the whole thing has been moved, which is why I'm showing you this, because it shows how it looks today. It's an artificial rebuilt rock face with a concrete dome and earthen rubble and concrete infill behind it, creating the illusion of the original temple. The original plan of the temple goes well back into the stone. So there would be a gateway. You have those 4 colossal Ramses outside. And then you see him defeating the Nubians, defeating the Libyans, various murals depicting great events in his life. Again, a warrior pharaoh. And as we move back, we move slowly into what will be really the mortuary temple. So this isn't the only one, again, but it's where you would go ahead and give offerings to Ramses. Of course, you wouldn't see him in life. No one saw the pharaoh in life unless you were a member of the court. Inside, we have these statues that are 32 feet tall, which depict Ramses in the form of Osiris, and they are carved columns, also known as Atlantids. So these are columns that have been carved into a human form, which take the place of a pier, a pilaster, etc. Behind them, you can see the columns as they would have been, and they simply carve away some extra material to create that image. They have no load-bearing function. And why build such a massive temple so far south? I mean, the Aswan High Dam is quite a ways south in Egypt. And the answer is, you want to show power, especially at your borders. You want to stop people invading. And one of the best ways to do that is to intimidate them. No different than a lion gate amongst the Hittites in the Mesopotamian cultures. It's the same basic principle. It also acts as propaganda. Look at how many resources I have. Look at how much I can do, what I can build so far from my capital. And if I can do that, imagine the army I can raise. Imagine how bad your life is going to be if you try and invade my country. And that's really the messaging behind it.